Hello, Matt from Peak Creative here. Today I'm going to be breaking down the drums on Keagan Park's latest single, Bustin Buckles. These were recorded by Tucker, Keagan's friend who also performed the part. We sent Tucker a guide track, the same one that we shared with you early on. Tucker worked out the part and then recorded it, and those were sent back through a file sharing service so that we could download the full quality audio files, drop them into the session. We gave Tucker very little direction. We basically said, prior to the chorus, we want you to hold back a little bit. We want to build tension, but we really want to unleash the energy as we go into that first chorus. And the words we used were like a bull coming out of the chute. And so Tucker did a great job of doing that. And then in the outro of the song, you'll hear the intensity picks up even more, which is great. So he did a really good job. So I will show you just a couple quick things on this. So let's take a peek at the recording session. So what we have here is all of his tracks. There are about a dozen tracks. We've got kick, snare, hi-hat, toms, an overhead mic, spot mic on the ride cymbal. We've also got a tambourine part in there. Now this is pretty typical. On a low end, I usually expect 3 to 5 mics on drums, although sometimes it's as low as 2. On the higher end, 8's very normal, 10, 12, very normal, sometimes 14, 16. I've even worked on a couple of cases where we had 18 to 20 different signals that we're working on. So the drums are an interesting thing to record because you have all these individual parts that need to have their own individual identity, their own sound and characteristics, but they all have to come together as a single cohesive instrument. So it can be a lot of fun working on drums and also really challenging. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of sound clips. Now, before I do that, let me just show you in here. I've really done nothing, so there's no processing on these. We have just adjusted the volume only on a couple of the tracks that were a little bit quieter in the recording, so we haven't mixed this. And then we've adjusted the panning, so we've placed each track in the stereo space. So with that said, let's go ahead and listen to this first clip, which is leading up from the intro into the chorus. And again, these are completely unprocessed tracks. You can hear energy's building. There's some tension there, especially when you add in the dark sounds of the guitars right in that section. And then coming into the chorus really opens it up. Let's go to the next section, and you'll hear what we call a train beat. This is a really good driving beat that creates a lot of energy. So let's listen to that. Yeah, you hear that really great driving kind of rhythm. And then let's go to the outro and let's hear what he does at the outro. It's going to sound a lot like the first chorus, but you'll hear the level of intensity has gone up quite a bit. So you can hear on the chorus, so the first chorus, he starts out with a hi-hat, and at the end he's switching to a ride cymbal, which is a larger cymbal. He's hitting it harder. It's just creating more energy in the mix, and he's hitting everything harder too. So he's adding some intensity. So he did a really good job of helping the song evolve and grow as it goes through. The most important tracks on the drum kit to me are going to vary depending on the song, but typically it's the kick, the snare, and then the overhead microphones. So I did take those 4 tracks before we mixed. I actually ran them out through the system. I processed them with a little bit of analog EQ, analog dynamics control, and then ran them through some tape saturation. Drums love tape. It helps compress them slightly, but it also changes the tonality. And so I really like the sound of drums running onto tape. Very old school analog approach here. Then we dropped everything into Pro Tools to mix it, and we did very little processing in Pro Tools. We did a little bit of light EQ on the rest of the kit, and then we added just a tiny bit of reverb, mostly on the snare drum, and we kept the drums actually pretty dry rather than putting a lot of reverb on them. And we used an analog reverb, which is really unusual, but I will show you that when we talk about Keagan's vocals. So that's it. There's really not a lot to go into today, but there's a couple of samples of the raw, unprocessed drums. You can hear the final track, how they sound. And I hope you enjoy this. Next up, we will be going into bass. Talk to you soon. Bye.